Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2446. Merry Christmas, everybody. Guess what? Santa came by my house, actually came into the garage and delivered something very special for me today. So grab your eggnog, your hot cocoa, sit by the fire, and be prepared to be inspired and be surprised. We'll be right back. Merry Christmas.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Merry Christmas, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in the garage with a very special guest by the name of Jay Leno. Jay, welcome to Cars Yeah. Merry Christmas. Do you have any gear? And are you ready to release the clutch?
Yes, I am actually. Actually, it's a dual clutch. We don't want people thinking it's an old show, so let's say dual clutch.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I understand, Jay, you brought along Santa's helpers today, your very good car buddy, Donald Osborne, who's fresh back from a trip to Italy. Donald, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's great to be back. And, of course, it's always wonderful to spend time with Jay on a holiday or any day.
That's right, even though we're 3,000 miles apart.
Well, you're not, yeah, you're not supposed to say that. See, we're supposed to all be together today.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Oh, gotcha, guys.
We're sitting around the fire.
Yeah, you let the cat out of the bag right at the beginning. Well, Jay Leno and Donald Osborne really need no introduction. Both are obviously quintessential car guys with a lifelong passion for classic cars. And of course, you'll see them appearing together on Jay Leno's Garage, Audrain's Mansion and Motorcars, and at automotive events and concours events across the country. But I thought today, guys, since it's Christmas, we would do something special. And what I wanted to do is start off by going back in time a little bit. Christmas is past. And I'm going to start with you, Jay. Is there an earliest memory you have of a car-related gift that you receive at Christmas? And I want you to tell me why that was so important. And since you still have everything you ever purchased, do you still have it?
Well, I'm trying to think. Well, when I was a kid, when I was 14, I found a 34 Ford behind a gas station in North Reading, Massachusetts. And I took my dad down to look at it. And we bought it for $350, which was actually a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
It had the original motor, the V8 and everything, but it wasn't quite running. So we dragged it back. I had 2 years before I got my license to get it running and stuff. I got it running, and then, but it was like an Earl Shive paint job. I sanded it and I gave it to a guy and he painted for $50 and, that kind of stuff. But I didn't have, my upholstery was not really good. So my parents treated me to a Naugahyde upholstery, which was, that was the thing. And, okay, so that was the gift. Yeah, I was driving around. And one of my idiot friends, being a 34 Ford, it didn't really have safety glass. And he slammed the door once and the window shattered.
Oh, no.
Okay. So I couldn't. So I went to school, back from Christmas. I went to school and the car was in the parking lot. I went to one of those suburban schools. It's all one level by that point, and you could see the parking lot. So I'm in like math or English, I don't know what class I was in, and I look out and I'm watching my truck in the parking lot because you can't lock it because the window's broken, And I see it starts to rain. And I go, oh boy, my beautiful Naugahyde upholstery is going to get ruined, and it's pouring. And I'm just having conniptions. Oh man, what am I going to do? I can't get out. I don't have to cover it if I get out of class. And about 20 minutes later, I see my mom and dad drive up with a huge tarp. And I can hear I couldn't hear him, but I could see my dad yell, well, you put that damn thing on, go on the other fender. He's like screaming how to get over,
Sure.
and I just started crying.
Yeah.
Because my dad had left work. I lived in a small town, so my dad worked uptown, which was like 3 miles, and my mom was a homemaker. So he ran home, got her. They got the tarpaulin out of the garage, and they covered my car. And
nice.
Well, that's a pretty good Christmas.
Yeah, this is the joy of Christmas. I mean, that's why I wanted to start with this question, because we all have those things. Now, Donald, I know you've been a car guy forever, and you're the king of appearances here on Cars Yeah, but I'm not so sure we've talked about this before. Was there a gift that you received on Christmas morning?
Well, mine is not nearly as spectacular as Jay's. Mine is more a story of how I always thought as a kid that there was one of those dark clouds. But actually, it was a dark cloud of probably the same thunderstorm that rained on Jay's car, always over my head.
There you go.
I remember wanting desperately, there was this wonderful plastic battery-controlled model toy, a '66 Ford Mustang Coupe. It was about, I don't know, maybe 20 inches long. It was just, I thought, the neatest thing on earth. And I kept sort of mentioning it over and over to my older brothers and to my parents that this really would be great. I really want this for Christmas. I thought, well,
and
there's no way.
This is only 4 years ago I wanted it.
Donald's a young man, you know.
Yeah. Exactly. I remember this quite well. I was about 10 years old, I guess. And so imagine my great delight to, I couldn't sleep. So I got up in the middle of the night and walked downstairs, and I saw my parents putting things under the tree. And so, you're supposed to go back to bed. So I went back to bed, and I thought I saw this box. I thought, could that be it? So I come down Christmas morning and very excitedly go to the biggest box there. It's got my name on it. I ripped the paper off, and there it is, this wonderful orange battery-powered Mustang Coupe. It was fantastic. I couldn't wait to drive it, and I drove it around and smashed into the doorway into the dining room. So like 10 minutes after I opened the box, it was broken. I thought, I'm cursed because I saw it the night before. That's why this is cursed, and I just never meant to have this. So it just scared me off of cars as gifts for decades now.
Yeah, well, that snooping before Christmas, I have to admit, I might have done a little bit of that myself, but that's just all part of the thing. Now, Jay, did Santa bring you anything this Christmas that you particularly longed for?
No, not really. No, not really. When you're in showbiz, you don't have a lot of car friends.
No?
So I don't want to say how many copies of Big Book of Harley Davidsons I have.
Yeah.
Or the Big Book of Exotic Cars. And it's, and these books are always like 15 years old. So there's always a Vector on the cover.
Yeah.
Or some other, because when you're not car people, I thought you'd like this. And inevitably, they never give you anything with any text where you could read about. Just big pictures, like I'm just going to look at pictures. Okay. Hey, this is great, Bob. Thank you very much. And of course, they're huge books that weigh like 4 pounds, and they're like $9.95. There's nothing funnier to me than going into a bookstore and going, "Do you have a transportation section?" And it's like 9 books. There's an old Chilton's manual for like an Austin princess or something, just something that it's just hilarious. It's just hilarious. It's very funny to me.
Well, here, I'll give you a copy of Stile Transatlantico by a guy named Donald Osborne. I think you might enjoy this.
Well, that's a very good book. Donald does a wonderful job. He's probably the best historian I know because he knows, he can pronounce the names of the people, which I can't do. Because that's another thing about when you like these exotic cars, you don't know anybody else that does. So consequently, you get your own pronunciation. Who's that Gagari guy? No, it's Gigero. What? Oh, it's not Gagari. And you just wind up. So I go to Donald whenever I need to find the real name of, Giuseppe Bitarini, whatever it might be.
I know. He knows how to say those Italian words so well.
Oh, yes. He's very good with those. But no, he really, if you're looking, it's one of the few books that has wonderful photography, but also wonderful text that you get involved as much as you do. Because it's fun to look at pictures and things. But when there's text, and Donald always finds the obscure fact that they had tortellini for lunch while designing, whatever it might be.
Well, he was probably eating lunch with them.
But I'm saying that, but he always has enough stuff there to keep you interested, little fun facts and just, it's just a wonderful book.
Well, thank you very much, Jay. That's terrific to hear you say that. I'm very flattered and honored. And you hit on something that I think is really important for me. And one of the reasons why I enjoy spending so much time with you and with Mark is the fact that always the story behind the story. I think that's the most interesting of all. And so whenever I can find that someplace or I can share that someplace, I'd love to do that. It's what makes our conversations so great because we never leave any fact unturned. There's always something behind the fact.
Yeah, and the fun part is when Donald and I get together, it's not always exotics. Sometimes it's a Rambler Rebel, or it's a '68, Dodge Dart. I always tell a story about I went to a car show in Wisconsin. I was doing a show there, and the car show was the next day. So I got up early and walked across the street to where the car show was. And it was raining. but it was a car show where the car that won was a 66 Pontiac Tempest with the overhead cam 6. Just the basic car that you would buy, but it was immaculate. It was nicely done, and it was just regular people. And because, a lot of times you go to these fancy car shows, people have, dozens of Ferraris and so. But when I was in Wisconsin, I'm just talking with a bunch of guys, and they were talking about when the kids get out of college, and the kids are like in 8th grade now, they're going to restore the Chevelle that's in the garage, but they got to wait till the kids are out of college. And it was just nice to get that full spectrum of people that really like cars as opposed to just people who can afford cars. Because, an awful lot of people who can afford cars, but they don't live it. They like having it and possessing it. And that's okay too. But it's fun when you meet people who are so dedicated to his 66 Chevelle, and oh my God, when the kids get out of school, it's just something to look forward to. It was just kind of fun to just sit around, eat bratwurst, and talk to these guys,
Well, this is the great thing about the car world. It brings all of us together no matter where we are, socioeconomic, politics, whatever. We're all car guys, car buddies, car gals. And that's a nice little segue. I always like to ask my guests here about what inspires them? I call it driving inspirations. And Jay, for somebody that is such a prolific car guy with so many cars and so much knowledge, I wanted to know from you, when it comes to making that decision to buy a car or motorcycle, what are the key factors that play into your decision buying? Because your collection is so many different things, and your talk about the Tempest is a good example of that. So what are some of your driving inspirations when you decide you want to buy something?
Well, it should be fun to drive and interesting to drive. I always wanted a Voisin because Gabriel Voisin was a rather quirky individual who he and the Wright brothers would throw rocks at each other, who was the first one to fly a plane. Although the Wright brothers were technically the first, Voisin was the first one to stand next to the plane, pull the prop, fire the plane up, get in the plane, take off, fly in a big circle, and land in the same place. So he considered that first flight versus half a dozen people throwing your plane in the air and then you glide. So they would always throw rocks at that. He always had quirky cars, but not particularly interesting engines. They were sleeve valve engines, which are, for people who don't know, a really unusual type of engine you don't really see anymore because the cylinder turns. The cylinder turns while the piston is going up and down. It's hard to visualize, but there are no valves, so consequently they're extremely quiet but really smoky. Okay, so I found one. It looked great and it had that quirky Voisin sign. And I drove it. It was up in Santa Barbara. And I'm on Main Street, and it's a little slow because sleeve valves are slow. But they smoke. It's just the nature of the vehicle. People were giving me the finger. They were yelling at me. Hey, pal, get your piece of crap car off. I'm going, that's not mine. I'm just, when you look at Cal, I said, it was so disappointing to actually drive,
Yeah.
So to me, it must be interesting to look at, of historical or technical interest, and it must be fun to drive. So that's why I love Corvairs. People who don't know Corvairs just think it's the most horrible car, but to me, it's the most innovative car, certainly of the first 70 years in America. The first time they got away from the Panhard system, engine the front, transmission, rear end, it was something different. It was very European. When I drive my 66 Corsa, kids ask me, is that a Karma Gear? No, it's a Corvair. A Corvair. Never heard of it.
Darn that Ralph Nader.
It is one of those things that truly binds me and Jay, and something that I think, to Jay's point about, might surprise them about our automotive relationship. Of course, my first car was a Corvair. So I am a Corvair nut, and I'll never forget that one day I was with some of my appraiser colleagues. They're touring the garage. Jay wasn't in town. He was out on the road, and he called in to say hello to my friends. And I put him on speaker on my phone, and Jay said, hey to everybody. And he said, Donald, of course, he'd never asked me before. Donald, if you could get the keys to anything in the garage and drive it home, what would it be? And without skipping a beat, I said, your Corsa Coupe. He says, wow, you're a cheap date. But
Yes.
That's, to me, one of those fabulous cars he has.
Wow. Yeah. Well, Donald, for you, the same question, because your taste is so broad and your knowledge with all these cars. But if you were going to, and you have, go buy a car, and you bought some very interesting cars in the last few years, what's your driving inspiration?
Well, I'm going to go back to an earlier question that you asked Jay about Santa and Christmas. because although I didn't spend Christmas in Italy, I did actually buy myself a Christmas gift while I was there 2 weeks ago. I bought a 1962 Lancia Appia sedan.
Oh, my.
I love Lancias, as does Jay. The absolute triumph of engineering over marketing. The engineers ruled the company and, okay, let the people in marketing sales figure out how to sell them. We're going to build the best and most interesting cars we can. The little 1100cc narrow angle V4 engine, amazing build quality. You know, this car that I bought has 21,000 kilometers from new. I'm the third owner of the car. Been repainted once in the early 1970s, and the interior is completely original. Everything else about the car is original. It drives amazingly. Just starts the first turn of the key, idles so smoothly. It's like you're listening to a 1930s Packard. It's just absolutely astonishing, and I just could not pass this thing up. Did I need to buy Lancia Appia? No, I don't think so. But I thought I couldn't leave this car where it was because I just wanted to, and I haven't had a Lancia for a while. So again, it's one of those things that you drive history, you drive the feeling of hundreds, not thousands of people that created this car for a reason. And I joked years ago, Jay and I did a seminar together at Pebble Beach, and I announced, Jay, whenever we like to work together, I should say whenever we work together, I like to surprise Jay. I'll come up with a topic, I'll tell him what it is. I'll say, okay, let's go, we'll talk about this. And I said, I'm going to define your collecting. You know, how you collect and why you collect. He says, oh, that's good. I can't wait to hear this.
Yep.
And went through everything, you know, how many collections in the world go from Corvairs to Duesenbergs and include Bugattis and jet-powered motorcycles. And I came up with this little acronym. I said, Jay collects with HEFT, H-E-F-T, history, emotion, fun, and technology. Those things can be found in every item in his garage. And it's interesting. And I don't know if you tell us, Jay. I don't know if it's not something that's conscious that he looks for, but I think it's a part of who Jay is. And that's how he wants to express himself.
I also like noble failures. That's one of my favorite. You know, you mentioned Lancia, the Alp, a perfect example of engineering over marketing. That was the genius of Lee Iacocca. Because Lee Iacocca, when they came up with Mustang originally, let's have independent resistance. He said, you don't need any of that crap. Just make it look good. Put it on a Falcon chassis. You know, because most people couldn't tell a six-cylinder from a V8 when the hood is closed. And that's what made it such a genius product. It was affordable. It appealed to everybody. And it was affordable. You know, Lancia was so expensive to build. When you look at the hinge on when you open the hood of a Lancia, the hinge goes click this way forward and then comes. I mean, it's the most elaborate but simple, brilliant looking hinge. But it took somebody months probably to design that and build it, and versus just having a rod holding the hood up. You know,
yeah.
Like when you fly on an airline. Whoever has the cheapest ticket. I mean, if the plane could have duct tape on it, people go, but if it's $99, hey, I'm taking that flight,
So are you surprised at this purchase of Donald's?
No, it's exactly what, if I was trying to find a gift for Donald, it would be something exactly like that. So, yeah. And I love those. That's the one with it's the four-door that opens from the center, right, Donald?
That's right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Pillarless.
Yeah. Wonderful car, wonderful to drive. Yeah, Lancia was really just a fascinating car company, but they just, Fiat made a cheaper, flashier car, and that's what sold.
Well, there you go. Is there, I should say, for a Christmas morning talk, a specific individual builder or designer or even an engineer for you, Jay, that when it comes to cars really stands out, that when you learn more about him and you ended up buying a car that this individual created or had a hand in, really made you smile and still does today, perhaps?
Well, there are, everybody knows Ferdinand Porsche and Benz and Daimler. They don't really, Frederick Lanchester, they don't really know. Abner Doble, nobody knows. Abner Doble, I've got a 1925 Doble steam car, which is to this day the most advanced steam car we've ever built. It's the only car where you turn a key and you pull away. Most steam cars, you have to get on your hands and knees and use a blowtorch and light the pilot and heat it up and wait. But the Doble it came out in 1925. And by that time, gas cars were here to stay. But he built a car that's It's faster than my Duesenberg. I mean, it's 1,000 foot-pounds of torque from zero.
Wow.
It's an amazing. I was driving it yesterday. It's an amazing car. It just makes me laugh. It's it's as silent as a Tesla. It's electric. You know, when you stop, the engine stops, just like modern stop. It just has all these kind of interesting things. But I would say Doble. I would say Mark Burkett, who designed the Hispano. Mark Burkett was a brilliant engineer. He also designed the linkage that allows you to have front brakes on cars back in the early days, because what would happen, you know, Henry Ford used to say the safety of steel from pedal to wheel, because you had a rod from the pedal to the rear brake and you pressed on it and the rod would pull the brake and stuff. Mm-hmm. But you couldn't put on the front wheels, because when you turned the wheels left to right, you're stretching the rod, so it would automatically apply the brakes. So you just couldn't do it. And he made the linkage that allowed it to move and do that kind of thing. So I would say Mark Burkett and Abner Doble are two of the more obscure but interesting ones.
Yeah, those are some rare names in rarefied air. Donald, I know for you, you tend to like things that are very unique and different. So if you think about that same question, is there someone that stands out for you?
Well, I don't know if I could pick a specific, I could pick a number of specific designers for the aesthetic, and certainly some for the engineering. Again, to the point of, I love the combinations of the aesthetic and the engineering. So for me, one of my favorite cars, again, shockingly a car that Jay owns and one which I will own, come close a couple of times and never quite gotten there, the Citroën SM, because it combines the best of the Italian, wonderful twin-cam Italian V6 engine with a wonderful Citroën hydropneumatics and a beautifully designed body. It is the perfect thing, because the Citroën DS is a wonderful car, but it lacks a good engine. And here you've got a Citroën with a good engine. So it seems to have absolutely everything. So it's probably one of my favorites. And again, just any car that has that combination of things. One of the things that, for interesting, Jay just mentioned, sleeve valve engine. I recently drove two cars which were competitors in their day, back to back, and the contrast could not have been greater. I drove a Minerva with a sleeve valve engine, which was a marvelous thing, very, very, very heavy, almost ponderous, but very much the car they meant to create, because it was sort of one of these road destroyers that, you know, as a big luxury car, just exempt everything that you needed to totally isolate yourself from what was happening outside. And I drove a Rolls Phantom 2. And I thought, well, this is a town car. It's going to be ponderous. It was the smoothest, silkiest thing to drive. It was absolutely astonishing. I thought, wow, in just one relatively short drive, about, an hour, I figured out why Rolls-Royce was in business and Minerva wasn't. And, it's just the way a car that, and generally speaking, a car that's conceived by either an individual like Ferdinand Porsche, like Hans Ludwinka, as opposed to a large company with a committee, a design committee, and a production review committee, you get cars that are just absolutely amazing because they do exactly what their makers intended them to do for the marketplace. They fit their brief very well, and they deliver that. Whether they're 120 years old, it could be, a Ford Model S, or it's a car that was just built last year.
Because I tend to like any car that was one man's vision. And I say it's not a sexist remark, because there weren't women designing cars back in those days. But like Gordon Murray, who designed the F1 McLaren, he didn't like radios. He thought they were a distraction. So you can't get an F1 with a radio. Isagonas, who designed the Mini, same thing, would not sell a Mini with a radio. So people made a fortune selling radios to put into Minis. But, as flawed as some of these things might be, the initial concept is always brilliant. W.O. Bentley was a railroad engineer, and he brought sort of modern techniques of using alloy pistons and things and aircraft into automobiles. W.O. Bentley, the Duesenberg brothers, people that had just their own idea. I guess in the more modern world, it would be Elon Musk with the Tesla. Whether you like it or not, I mean, the guy is a genius. He came to my garage in 2007 with the prototype to his Roadster, his little Lotus Roadster. And I drove, and he said to me, I'm going to put charging stations all up and down the coast, and it'll be free. And I'm going, yeah, right, that'll happen. Well, but something as he was building that first car, he was buying the land and getting the infrastructure ready for when that car is. I mean, to this day, even big automakers, oh, you can buy my electric, you can charge it anywhere. Just plug it in. Well, no, you can't. You really can't. It's why to have that vision, everything, because I really thought Elon was a dreamer. Like, yeah, you're going to have charging stations all up and down the coast. Okay, yeah, sure. But he got 5,000 of them now.
It's incredible. And I saw where you were just playing in the tented version of the Cybertruck just last week on your Jay Leno's Garage show. How was that?
Again, amazing technology. When you realize that the Cybertruck is almost 4,000 pounds less weight than the Hummer.
Yeah.
Because Elon has developed these lightweight, I'm being, by comparison.
That's in quotes, yes.
Lightweight batteries. He also developed a new battery you can charge to 100% every day, as opposed to just 80% or 85% as they do now. It's always amazing to me because I always say this, but people say, oh, once the Germans get involved, Elon will be out of business, their technology. Well, I'm sorry. I always put my faith in American technology, and it hasn't let me down yet. And to this day, they still have the most modern electrics, the most modern thing. I mean, he comes up with things. Well, for example, a lot of people don't know this, but the Cybertruck has a scuba package. Did you know that?
Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
You can go in the water, and the air pressure will force any water that comes into the truck out through the leak holes or whatever else.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, he's got things that, all the cameras on the cars, if somebody scratches it, it takes a picture of them. You get a video of the guy keying your car. Things nobody else thought. That HVAC system filters like 99.9% of the air. I mean, you can literally drive through a forest fire in a Tesla with that HVAC system on it, and the air is clean. It's filtered inside. I mean, just things nobody else thinks of. So,
Jay, I just realized something, that you're selling all this, and you talk about engineering vision. Perhaps Q Branch is actually the designing the Teslas. I think that.
Oh yeah, the Q. Surely you're joking. I never joke.
Exactly.
There you go.
But Llewellyn, the actor who played Q, he has real car history. You know what it is?
Yeah.
His father bought the very first Bentley, W.O. Bentley. He bought it off the stand at the Olympia Auto Show.
Wow.
And when I had him on the Tonight Show, we talked about it, and it was interesting. He was
amazing.
He was quite an elderly gentleman by that point, but he well in his 80s. But but it was fascinating talking about his dad met W.O. Bentley and bought the car right off the floor, and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool.
Well, it's very cool. I wanted to look a little bit ahead, Christmases of the future here. And, Audrain and the show you two guys do together with the mansions and Motorcars is spectacular. I love the combination. My dad was an architect, so I've got an affinity to that. If you look ahead at the automotive collector car industry, what do you guys think about what's coming? I feel really positive about it because I interview so many young people that are so fired up about this. A lot of people say, young kids don't want to drive. I don't think that's so true. For you, Jay, when you look ahead, I mean, you got a garage full of old cars, so your future is set. But what do you see in the future for the automotive collector car industry?
Well, it's like rock and roll and rap. They couldn't be more different, but they're still music. Mm-hmm. To me, shows like Radwood kind of go over my head because cars from the 90s were just old cars. They're just used cars to me. I saw 3 of those on the street yesterday, But if you were born in the year 2000 and having a Miata from that year, it's a 24-year-old car now. It sort of makes me laugh. I mean, I think the future is very bright because in the old days, when cars were part of the culture with, little GTO and little Deuce Coupe, and guys who knew nothing about cars pretended to get girls, and girls pretended to care about cars to meet guys. But they really weren't. I meet people now who either know nothing about cars and couldn't care less, or fanatically interested in it. And a lot of it is from the computer side of it, It's funny. I've had students come through the garage and they see the guys fooling with carburetors and go, man, what is that? They show them about needles and jets, and they're fascinated. And my guys are stunned by the computers, so it just changes. But I think it's all good. I mean, colleges like McPherson, they give a 4-year degree in automobile restoration. It's not like one of the biotech things where you go for 90 days. I mean, it's a situation where they get placed in like the Jaguar Classic Center in England. A lot of them go to Mercedes Classic because they have a they take all the college courses, but they also take courses in magneto rebuilding, old paints. How do you recreate the paint that was done back in the day, all kind of things. So I'm quite hopeful about I still think the golden era will be 1918 to 1976, but I think there's a lot of new things coming too.
Well, I was just going to say they brought that wonderful Mercedes to the lawn at Pebble this past summer and ended up, I think they got a second place in their category.
Yeah, they got a second place. And that was not a gift. That was a real second place. It wasn't like, let's give an honorary award to these kids. No, I mean, they competed with the best restoration shops in the country, but it's not. It's the world.
Yeah.
And the name is second. That's pretty good. I mean, that's like a Rocky movie,
It's cool. And Donald, I know at Audrain, you guys, your effect and importance of young people in the car world is so key. I mean, even in the Audrain concours, you have an under 30 category, which I'm not sure anybody else does that. So what's your optimistic outlook of the future for young people in old cars?
Well, 3 things. I'm going to say that I am extremely optimistic, and I'm also going to do something that Jay himself did not do, but actually give Jay credit. The 30 under 30 in the Audrain concours was Jay's idea.
All right, cool.
For a class in the concours for people who are 30 years old or younger who had spent or invested $30,000 or less in their cars they were displaying. And we were the first to do it. A number of concours have adopted it, and I think that it's something that is sort of like open sourcing. It's not something we want to keep as a proprietary thing for ourselves because we want this to spread everywhere. Now there's concours in the UK that does a 30 into 30, and several in the US that do it as well. And the entire idea is also not to have the children's table, not to have a little show somewhere over there for the young people.
Yeah.
It's to have the people integrated onto the main show field, judged by the same team of international judges that judges the Duesenbergs and the Hispano Suizas and the Bugattis and the Cadillacs and the Packards, that the best in class is eligible for the best of show consideration. And it's not that they did a good job for who they are. No, what is it that they intended to do? How are they honoring the manufacturer and creators of these cars in this way? And also one of the things that surprises a lot of people, doesn't surprise me, doesn't surprise Jay, is the range of cars that they bring. It's not just the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s cars. They bring 1911 Franklins. I mean,
right.
1938 Hupmobiles. So it's an incredible range, and so that to me makes me very, very, very hopeful. Plus, and Jay is a big fan of veteran cars, as I have become in the last 20 years. I've become absolutely obsessed by them. And to see the number of young people in their teens and 20s, who are fascinated by pre-World War I cars because they are completely mechanical. It is something completely strange and alien to the entire way they grew up in the digital age, where you don't repair a cell phone. You throw it away and get a new one. And all of a sudden you've got something with exposed valve gear. You actually see how the engine works while it's working. And that's something that, everything else today is magic. It comes from the wall or you just turn it on and think about it and it occurs. Understanding how your relationship is built with an object. If you're going to drive a veteran car, you have to operate it every second that you're behind the wheel.
Right. Look, the interesting part is it started because I would go to car shows, and I would go to those kind of car shows where the ropes are around the car and they have the sign, unless you're new, don't approach this car, all those kind of stupid things. And I would hear young people look at a Duesenberg and go, "Oh, it's stupid the thing that is," And I go, "Why?" Because they never sat in it. They weren't allowed to hear. Whenever I go to a car show, I open my car doors. Say, "You kids want to sit in this?" Yeah. And I've been doing it for so long. I have guys in their 40s that come to car shows with pictures of them when they were 6 sitting in my Countach. But
Nice.
you realize that's how you get spark going, I mean, because I always relate to, I have a friend who collects Maytag washing machines from about
What?
late 1800s. Well, I'll tell you why, up until about 1910. Because when you bought one of those washing machines, the motor was right next to the agitator. And since it was visible, it was brass and it was chrome, and it was German nickel. And when it moved, things went tick, 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 and you'd see the little act like watching the back of a clock. And it was fascinating to look at.
Wow.
And then somebody along and said, we can make it a lot cheaper, just put a white box over it. And everybody lost interest in how they operated. But when you see these early ones, this is what people did before Netflix. You watch mechanical things,
Yeah.
And it was interesting. So to me, that's why the 30 under 30 started, because I thought, why aren't these people? Well, I remember Duesenbergs when I was a kid riding in one. I think, oh my God, this thing is so cool, But if you never had any experience, I bought a XK120 Jag because when I was 9, a man let me sit in his. I saw it. I was riding my bike, came over the hill, and he was in the driveway polishing. And I went, oh man, look at that. And he said, hey kid, you want to sit in this? Yeah. This is before all men were pedophiles,
Oh, gosh.
And I said, okay. And it was so funny because I thought that guy was an old man.
Yeah.
And almost 40 years later, I found that he was still alive. And I realized he was only 10 years older than I was.
that ember burned for a long time in there, which is cool. I've got to ask you, Jay, you've always been a West Coast guy. I grew up down in San Diego County, so I'm old time, used to have long hair and surfed back when I had hair. And you got a house out there in Newport, and I got to ask, how much influence did Donald have on this purchase of yours? Was he to blame?
Well, I'm from the East Coast. It's funny. The West Coast, you meet a few guys with a lot of cars. You go to the East Coast, you meet single individuals that have one car, and they probably had it 30 years, and it's either in their parents' garage or it's in a barn somewhere, and it's just different. I mean, there are certainly big collectors on the East Coast as well, but it's just a different type of collecting. It's more about preserving history, or like it made me laugh when I came to California and a friend said, my parents' house was built in 1948. And I go, what? Well, I mean, I lived on a street where there was a barn that was built in 1689
Sure.
or something,
Yeah.
And it just made me laugh. 1948? What are you talking about? That's not, it just made me laugh,
Yeah, it's very unique. I played a little game here, Jay, and Donald's done this quite well, actually. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to be car psychologist. I've got a special certificate I actually made in Photoshop, so I don't tell anybody it's real. I crawl into my guests' heads. This is something I hope no one's ever asked you before.
All right.
If you were reincarnated, pun intended, manifest as a vehicle, and this isn't what you want to be because that's way too easy. We would love to be a sleek sports car, but maybe at this point in life, we don't quite look like that. At least I don't. What kind of vehicle would you be? But the real important part of this is, so what is Jay Leno?
What kind of car would I be?
Yeah. And again, this is you looking at the man in the mirror, kind of getting on the psychologist couch here a little bit. Yeah. Who is Jay Leno if he's a car?
I don't really know. I'm a huge believer in low self-esteem. I think it's the key. Because
Okay.
when you don't think you're the smartest person in the room, you shut up and you listen. And there's a certain advantage to that. I've learned that too in television. I know so many friends when they got television shows. No, here's how I see it. No, I don't want those kind of lights. I want these kind of lights. And you realize you're talking to a lighting director who's been doing this for 35 years. Hire the best people. Get them to do what they do. And you just do what you do. You do one thing well. Okay, you don't do anything else well. Most people can't do anything. Some people can do one thing, and there are a few people that can do many things, but they are few and far between. So, to me, if I was going to be a car, it'd probably be something reasonably dependable, like an E55 AMG or something that was, 4 doors, comfortable. It was reasonably quick, but not kind of a Q-ship kind of thing. So I don't know. I never really thought about if I was a car.
No, it's a unique question. So, Donald, I'm going to twist this for you. What do you think Jay is? This should be fun.
Oh, if I can just take a side step before I answer, and I will answer. During one of the seminars here at the Audrain Newport Concours and Motor Week, we had two Jays up on the stage. We had Jay Leno and Jay Ward. And someone asked, since Jay Ward is, in charge of the Pixar Disney Cars franchise, what car he picked as a character for the people on the stage. And he came to me and he said, "A Borg Ward Isabella," which I thought was absolutely hysterical.
I love Boardwalk Isabella.
They're fantastic.
See?
But I think that it was a combination of something that I had to be slightly obscure because that's how he saw me. Somebody sort of, they're not what you expect. So I think that, to Jay's point, I would probably think that, I know exactly what he'd be. It's from his collection, but that's fine. Actually, I think he'd be a Chrysler Turbine car.
Ooh.
Because it's an object with great style, incredible engineering complexity, and an amazing execution that you cannot find very many of. So, to me, that's Jay.
Nice. What do you think? Does that fit your impression of yourself, Jay?
Yeah, I'll take that. I was thinking Donald Moore, the Creeders popcorn wagon. You ever seen one of those? Well, no, because it's entertaining.
Yeah.
It makes an entrance. People are immediately drawn to it, and it's dependable.
There you go.
It does what I have to do. So,
Excellent.
I mean, if you drive one of those Creeders, is it Creeders? That is it? Yeah. Popcorn. If you've seen one of those, usually they're on the back of a Model T, and they have a Calliope and everything else. But they drive up, and you see the popcorn behind the glass, dun, 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 and just people run to it. Adults, kids, everybody likes it. So when Donald shows up, immaculately dressed with the bow tie, people, who's that guy? Oh, that's the guy. He's in charge of the Audrain. So he's sort of the face of it. When you think of the Audrain, you think of Donald as the guy you go to, the guy that has all the answers to all the questions you might have. So I think the Creeders popcorn wagon would be good.
I can
Thank
see
you.
that.
I'm going to have to redo my business cards now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we go and we part ways today, I always like to enable my guests. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge here because what I do, Jay, is I allow you to get into any vehicle and take it on a drive anywhere in the world. But here's the most important part, because I think you'll agree, this car hobby we're in is really about people. It brings people together of all walks of life, friends that you haven't seen for a year. You walk on a concours lawn and you're immediately their friend again. So for you, Jay, if I could send you on the ultimate drive, for a guy who's driven just about everything that rolls on rubber, what would the ultimate drive be for you? But most importantly for you, who would you take with you? And here's the key. It could be somebody from the past that no longer is with us. So this could be somebody.
Well, that could get very smelly.
Yeah, well, now that's the first time I've heard that answer, but I'm not surprised coming from you. But here's the keys.
Actually, I was thinking for the exact opposite reason. A car is probably the only place you can truly be alone in the modern world. Yeah. Like to me, when I'm trying to write material, I'll say it out loud to myself. But you can't really do it at home. What'd you say, honey? Nothing. What? What'd you say? It doesn't sound that funny. I know. I'm not. I don't. It's not finished. I'm just trying to come. When it's like, I'm sure Donald sings in the car all the time when he's alone, because you can't do that in a restaurant or any other. Although
Donald would.
But what I mean is, it does bring people together, but it does allow you a little solid. When you think about it, you really can't get much solitude anymore. But you get on the open road and you can listen to whatever you want on the radio, or you can just talk out loud or talk through things. And, like to me, I would just, doing comedy, it's the economy of words. You try to say the funniest thing in the shortest way possible. So I'll drive around for a half hour. And what I'm driving is way more important than where I'm going, because I enjoy the experience. So,
wow. Another unique answer.
That makes sense.
No doubt. So will we find you guys hanging out together again at Audrain's and continuing with the, obviously, Jay Leno's Garage on YouTube, which I love every Monday to see who's showing up in your garage. But will you be hanging out again doing some more mansions and motor cars?
Well, the fun thing about doing with Donald is it really is truly unscripted. It's just two car guys talking. And I like to think it's as if two guys just met for the first time. And what do you like? I like that too. And we couldn't be more different. Yet we have this one similar passion. And to me, opposites attract far more than people like-minded interests, because I'm drawn by Donald's intelligence, and he knows all the European designers and all that. So, to me, I always say, and this sounds like a terrible thing, men have allies, women have friends.
Yeah.
I like to hang out with people who make me better, and hopefully maybe I can make them better. And so consequently, when I have guy friends, they're usually people who can help me in some way, and I can help them in some.
Yeah.
You know, I know that guy. Could you do it for me? And I go, yeah. Hey, can you fix this Harley carburetor? Yeah, no problem. You know, and it's just sort of fun. You know, so Donald really has a foot in each world, which I think is fascinating.
Well, it is. And this is how we got together today. I've been wanting to have you on the show for 9 years. Donald made it happen. So Donald is a bringer together of car buddies.
You know, I've been ducking your phone calls for 9 years.
I finally got you, Jay.
Donald tricked me. And I go, it's that Mark guy again. Don't go. All right.
Well, I can't thank you and Donald enough for doing this with me today. It makes the best Christmas ever. And before I let you guys go here, I wondered if you would share maybe some, what I always say, parting words of wisdom or advice. And this could be for life, could be for the new year, because it's a week away. Holy cow, 2024, this year's flown by. I wonder, Jay, if you'd leave us with maybe some words of inspiration for the new year coming.
Words of inspiration?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't know. You know, be kind. That's always my thing. You know, it doesn't take a lot of effort to do that, you know. Whenever I meet, like, young people that interested in cars, you know, I let them sit in the car and talk, and it's always paid off dividends. You know, I meet them years later, and they'll tell me they bought something because I influenced them or whatever it might be. So I would say be kind. That kind of work.
It's pretty simple, isn't it? And Donald, I know you always have wonderful pros when it comes to influencing and inspiring others. How about you for the upcoming new year?
I think it's be true to yourself, and that doesn't mean being selfish. It means understanding that I can only be me. I can't be somebody else. I can't change myself for what somebody else expects me to be. I can only be the best of who I am and share that with the world. And I think I'm so incredibly grateful for the gift that I have been given to be able to share my passion and my enthusiasms and have other people appreciate that. That to me is absolutely extraordinary.
It's not a Broadway musical. I gotta be me. I gotta be me. I share my passion.
Did we just get Jay to sing on the show, Donald? I think that just happened.
Of course,
yeah.
Absolutely. See, that's another one of Jay's secrets. He talks about singing in the car. Jay, whenever we get into the car together, I can't stop Jay from singing. It's amazing. He just sings over and over.
I just do it to keep Donald from singing.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll try that next time. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for doing this with me today. You just made the end of my year and the start to the new year. I want to wish both of you a very Merry Christmas and a very healthy, prosperous new year.
All righty.
Filled with cars and fun. And until you guys and I talk again, thanks for being here. I'll see you down the road.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas.
My absolute pleasure.
For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. Years ago, when it was time to renew my collector car insurance policy, my carrier's rates went up. Way up, but my usage was the same and I never made a claim. I didn't even have a ticket. So what's with that? So I turned to American Collectors Insurance. Has your collector car insurance recently raised your rates for no good reason? Tired of paying an annual membership fee? Then it's time to look around and call American Collectors Insurance. I shopped around, I asked friends for recommendations, and found a winner that I can trust. And boy, I'm glad I did. I saved hundreds of dollars every year and slept better at night knowing my baby was properly insured. American Collectors Insurance have been protecting vehicles since 1976. They provided me with an agreed value insurance policy backed by their history of taking great care of their clients. What could be better than that? So give them a call and ask for a quote today. 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. And protect the ones you love like I did, with American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.